Welcome to Stories of Mattoon, the podcast where the quiet roads and corn-lined horizons of central Illinois come to life. Here, in this small town, shaped by hard work, faded storefronts, and generations of family roots, history isn't something in a textbook. It's something people still live every day. In each episode, we sit down with local historians, lifelong residents, and Toonies, whose lives have been shaped by Mattoon's past and present. These are the stories that built the town, told by the people who keep them alive today. So, pull up a chair and join us in talking about anything and everything Mattoon.
Yeah. Come on in, Tom. Play it so pretty.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Hey, everybody. This is your friends and fellow Toonies, Jordan and Tom, recording our episode of Toonie Loons, the podcast that brings the voices of Mattoon straight to you. From local legends to everyday stories, we're here to share the moments, memories, and characters that make this town unforgettable.
Today we're going to be speaking with Tim Cox, who is one of the surviving members of the Cox family. And so we were honored for him to come on and tell his story. Okay, here we go with Tim Cox.
Okay, Tim. Yeah,
Yes.
Again, you've got Tom and Jordan with you, Jordan and Tom, and we're so glad that you want to share your story. And tell us why it's important for you to share the story. A lot of people got it wrong.
Yes, there's been journalists and other people in the past have written stories, and a lot of the facts that they put in these stories were untrue.
Yeah.
Facts about our parents, facts of what went on that night, and so forth.
Yeah. Let's back up a minute here. What is and you're down in, you said, what's the city in Arkansas?
Rosebud.
Rosebud, and you said you're just out of Little Rock by a minute there, right?
About 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, the big city, as we were joking. Yeah, down
Yes,
there.
sir.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what does an average day look like for you these days?
Well, of course, I'm retired, and my average day is, recently we've been remodeling our kitchen, and also started to build me a new workshop. So we're trying to stay busy.
Yeah.
My wife and I have 3 small dogs and a couple of cats, so they keep us fairly busy also.
Oh yeah. Take you back to 1968. There, what did a average day in the Cox family household look like for you?
Well, back then, like on the weekends when we were not in school, we had our chores to do. It was house cleaning time, and stuff like that. And the girls generally, worked with mom, cleaning the house and stuff like that. And the boys, we always carried the water stuff in for laundry and stuff like that, and keep the grass mowed, things of that nature. If everybody, had a part to do in taking care of our house. There was 11 of us children. 3 were, grown and married. And, it was just more than Mom could handle by herself.
Oh, sure.
And then also, in the wintertime, on weekends, Dad and I, or Dad and myself and Lou, we would go hunting, rabbit hunting and stuff like that.
Now, ironically enough, I know of the family that resides out that way. I know that the house was raised, and then, of course, there was a double corn crib.
Yes, it's gone too, I believe.
Yes, it's been raised, but yeah, we used to actually have band practice out that way, and I didn't know it. I knew some inklings of your story, but I didn't realize that until years later, after I'd been out there for so many times. Whenever my friend had told me that's the same property, so that kind of goes down off the Dole Road there, off of 121, and then right before you would end up curving around on the Kaskaskia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so
it was about half a mile from the Kaskaskia, as far as the road went.
Yeah, and there's some bottoms there. We used to go mushroom hunting back down on some of those bottoms. And you said that you would go and get water and things. Did you guys have a well, or was it?
Yes, we had a hand pump well right there at the back of the house. At that point in time, we did not have any running water or inside plumbing.
Yeah, well, that was probably back then. That was just the way it was, right?
Well, it was for us. I mean, with 11 children and mom and dad, dad had a 4th grade education, mom had an 8th grade education. And so they didn't make a lot of money, even though, mom and dad worked hard and everything else. But dad was a laborer on construction.
Mm-hmm.
And mom, she worked at the hospital as a dishwasher, and she also worked at a laundry there in Mattoon for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And there was, again, 11 children in total, but there were a few that had already moved off.
The 3 oldest ones were already married and gone.
Okay. Well, that only, that only left your mom with a bunch of kids still.
Yes, it did.
What would she do when she wasn't? If she got 5 minutes of something to do on her own, what would she be doing?
Well, she never really got any time for herself.
I'll bet.
Mom was always taking care of us kids and everything. Making sure we were doing what we were supposed to be doing and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Walk me through the house, Tim. As you are in your mind, if you are approaching your house and you're walking in through the front door, tell me that.
We never went through the front door. We always went through a side door, and we'd walk into the back porch and into the kitchen, and then immediately to the right would be the living room. And if we walked further back in the kitchen, off to the right would be the staircase going upstairs to the 2 bedrooms upstairs. And then if you kept going in the kitchen to the next door, you'd go to the right, that'd be Mom and Dad's bedroom.
Mm-hmm. And what did what did Mom cook for you guys? I'm sure the girls probably helped Mom cooking, or maybe you guys as well. What was cooking on any given day?
Well, Mom always had home cooked meals. Chicken and dumplings and homemade noodles. Of course, mashed potatoes and gravy and vegetables. We always had a big garden.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it was all fresh foods. Back then you didn't buy everything that you do today. And you didn't have the fast foods and all that. Of course, if we had it back then, we didn't have the money for that anyhow.
Yeah, well, some of the Franken foods with 50 ingredients on the back of the box and everything. So you guys were getting it right out of the garden. That's great.
Yes, sir. We always had a big garden every year.
What was your favorite meal, Tim?
Oh, sweet corn.
Yeah.
The sweet corn and stuff like that. Homemade mashed potatoes and gravy, and meat-wise, generally chicken. Is what I always like the most. Of course, in the wintertime, we went hunting and stuff. We had rabbit, but I never really could eat rabbit because I couldn't kill it and then eat it too. I'm kind of sensitive on stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, walk me through maybe some of the dynamics with your family as far as the personalities with you guys. Is somebody the jokester? Is somebody the more serious one? Is there just walk me through that if you can.
Well, it's kind of hard to remember as far as that part of things go. Of course, Kenny, he was the youngest one. He liked to play around. And I was always with Dad when I wasn't in school. So, he was always going fishing and hunting and stuff of that nature. And Louis, he liked to run around with his friends and everything. And Louise, yeah. And Louise, she was basically always there, doing her schoolwork and all that, and then help her mom with the house. And my other sisters doing the same thing,
Yeah.
Whenever we would have time to play and all that, we'd go out in the yard and play kickball or ride our bike or things of that nature.
The closest house I've been in contact with David Blum, and he lived down the road from you all, I guess. And so I just as I know it right now, how far those houses are spread apart. Still, it probably was the same back then, I'm assuming. Well,
the closest house at that time, which was just across a small field, Mr. Lilly. Of course, he's no longer with us. He's passed away a long time ago. His house was there. And then going in the opposite direction, more towards the south, there was can't remember that farmer's name. He's a pretty good-sized farmer. His house was down there, but he was about half mile down the road.
Okay.
And on the east side, it was a good quarter mile or so to a small house that was over there.
Yeah, and did you guys ever have any neighbor kids? Anyone coming over that was in the same vicinity, or?
No, there wasn't anybody in the same immediate vicinity.
Yeah,
and most. Even if there was, most kids didn't want to hang around poor kids like us.
There's this is 1968 that we're talking about, and so what do you guys, when you guys were in town, and maybe not out at the house, what had you in town, Tim, for fun or to do?
Well, we rarely went to town, especially by ourselves. And, once a month or so, we'd go to town, we grocery shopping and stuff like that. And Dad and Mom would stop by the A&W root beer stand and pick up a gallon of root beer and some ice cream. We'd go home and have root beer floats.
Oh, yeah.
And then as I got a little older, ride the bicycles into town and things of that nature, go visit my grandparents and that type of thing.
Yeah. Where did your grandparents live?
At that time, they lived on Pine Street there in Mattoon.
Oh, okay. And so, taking you back, we spoke with Lisa earlier, and kind of the juxtaposition of, juxtapose the 1968 Martin Luther King was assassinated, and Bobby Kennedy, all within a month of the tragedy that happened with your family. And
yes,
it wasn't and maybe I make this up, but maybe you can tell me you guys didn't worry about locking doors or anything. This is kind of the Midwest.
No, things were a lot more relaxed back then. You didn't lock your doors. You didn't lock your car. Of course, back then we didn't have any air conditioning and things like that like we have today. You'd have your window open, with the screens. You'd have a box fan for air circulation in the summertime and all that kind of thing. And things are a lot more relaxed, and you just didn't feel threatened.
Yeah, I think Lisa said, kind of like, even though you would be reading the headlines with Vietnam or the assassinations, it's kind of like those are things that happen over there, not here.
Right.
Yeah.
So things of that nature, we just didn't, they just didn't happen around there. Rarely anything ever happened around the Mattoon area. And then when that happened, it was one of the biggest things that ever happened there.
Oh yeah. It's definitely. I can remember even being a kid and hearing about this, and it has changed Mattoon for forever, and
yes.
So, again, I appreciate you so much talking with us. If there's anything that we ask and you don't want to answer, then just say next, and we'll move on. How's that sound?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take you back to that day, and if you could give us just maybe you remembering how the day was before.
It started out as a fairly quiet day. My mother and father had gone to town to do some grocery shopping early that morning. And, of course, the kids were all doing their chores and all that kind of thing. And then my mom and dad came home, and my dad wanted me to go with him to my uncle's, Court Dorn's, to work on a pickup truck we had, put new brakes on it. And prior to that, I'd been walking out along the river with Fuller, just walking the river and shooting the bull and blah, 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 and then come back home, and Dad said he was ready to go. So we left and went to my uncle's house over at Dorn's.
Really? I read that you were fixing a truck with Dad. I didn't know it was in Dorrance, but I didn't know that you were out with Charles on the river there earlier.
Yes, walking the river that morning. He and I'd walk the river and just, walking around and really doing nothing, just walking the river and then came back to the house.
Now, are you 15 or 16 at this point?
I was 15.
Yeah, I thought, okay. And now Charles was 18, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you, how long had he and Louise been dating?
It's been quite a while. But I'm thinking earlier that school year, it'd been over 6 months because I don't remember exactly how long it was that they were dating. It was quite a while.
Yeah.
He was always polite and quiet and so on.
There's nothing, like while you're walking out along the Kaskaskia, you didn't have any warning signs or anything that was upcoming? He didn't seem out of the ordinary, or?
Nothing seemed out of the ordinary that day. We always had shotguns. We always did some target practicing out back. We always went hunting and so forth. He had a shotgun, and he traded his shotgun in for this pistol. And he came out, yes, and a Western style 22. And he brought it out to the house with him, and we didn't think much of it because we was always target practicing out back. And there was no inkling of anything of this kind of nature, even remotely coming up.
Wow. my gosh. And
he
so
he was always polite. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. All that kind of thing. He never really shown out or anything else. And there was just absolutely no clue that he even had this in his mind.
Now, was he at the house often? Was it a typical weekend, I guess, or day for him to stop by?
Yeah, he'd come to the house generally most weekends.
Okay.
Now, how did he get there?
At the time he did this, he had a 5960 Chevy convertible that he drove out.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and so now, where are you when you hear about everything?
Okay. Now, I was at my uncle's house with my father, putting brakes on the truck, or getting it ready to put brakes. My uncle went to town to get the parts. Anyhow, the phone in my uncle's garage rang. I answered the phone, and it was Louise on the phone. They had found my two little sisters in a pool of blood in the breezeway of the corn crib. They didn't know what happened to them, but they thought they were dead, and to please hurry home. And I told her, I said, immediately call an ambulance, and as soon as you get done calling the ambulance, you call the police. And I hung up the phone. I ran and told my dad what was said, and about that time, my uncle pulled in the driveway, coming back from town, picking up the parts. I told him what was said. We all jumped in the car and was going to head to the house. My father told me, he said, no, you stay here and work on the truck. And they headed to the house. And I had went ahead and put the wheels and stuff back on the truck and the brakes on it, but I did not have them adjusted because I didn't have that knowledge at that time. And then I drove the old 56 GMC we had from Dorns across country to our house. And as I come closer to the road, which ran in front of our house, I could look across the field, and I could see all these cars and police cars and hearses. And as closer I got to the house, I noticed there were several vehicles in the driveway, and there's our driveway at that time on the right side was lined with trees. And I was worried about how I was going to get the truck stopped with all the vehicles, but it did. And I no more got stopped when my dad came out. And he was, of course, he was in hysterics. And he says 5 of them dead.
No, my gosh. I can't even fathom. Do you think that maybe him telling you to stay in Dorrance was maybe he knew something was bad and was trying to protect you from that?
Well, he was trying to protect me. He didn't know what was going on, and he didn't want me. I think he didn't want me to see whatever might have been.
Yeah,
because they didn't have a clue. When my father and my uncle got there, they drove straight back to the corn crib. They went into the breezeway of the corn crib where my sister's bodies laid. And Dad picked them up and was holding them. And felt how cold they were and everything. And he got up and walked to the back of the corn crib to the outside. And he was hollering for my brothers, please come home. Please come home. Something terrible's happened. And at the whole time that he was saying that, my 3 brothers were laying at his feet, and he didn't even know it.
Oh.
He was that distraught.
Oh my gosh! What? And what time is this, Tim? This is around.
Well, it was around. I'm saying between 6 and 7 in the evening when they went out there.
You know, actually, even though the boys were last to be found, they were
the first to be.
They were the first ones. That's he had taken, and he, under the guise of let's go shooting birds, right?
Well, no, he told Louis. He said, "Let's go out in the bar lot and do some target practicing." Now, I know we know all this stuff because they put Fuller under sodium pentothal.
True, sir.
Yes, sir. And they had a film. They videoed the whole thing when they had him under sodium pentothal, and they played this in court. That's how I know what actually went on. And anyhow, he told Louis, "Let's go out and target practice. We'll set up some old field tile up on a post, and we'll target practice." And as Louis walked away from him to set up an old field tile on a post, he shot him. The first shot caught him in the back of the ear. And then he went back to the house and told my little brother, Gary, said, "Hey, Louis playing dead out in the corn crib, right in the barn lot. Let's go see." So they went out there. And as Gary walked closer to Louis and saw the blood and stuff, he stood and started to scream, and he grabbed him and shot him.
Did you get the feeling that he wanted him to see him before, instead of maybe shooting him like on the way out or something? Did you?
I really don't know on that. But the worst part of it was my youngest brother, Kenny, 5 years old, unbeknownst to Fuller, followed them out there. He saw Fuller shoot Gary and turned and started to run. Fuller chased him down and grabbed him by the nape of the neck and shot him to the top of the head.
Wow.
Oh my God! And you had to watch this this interview with him, and I just can't imagine.
And then he went back to the house, told my sisters that he'd shot some birds, and told my two little sisters, Teresa and Mary Catherine, told them, "Hey, let's go out in the corn crib. You guys should get up in the corn crib and stir around and chase the rats out, and I'll shoot them."
That's what I'd heard about the rats. And they were nice.
He got them in the breezeway of the corn crib and just opened fire on them. And in between these times, he'd go back and shoot Louis some more. My memory is right, he shot Louis 7 times, all total.
Wow.
I mean, why? Why all of it? Why? And this had been so. Now, so who's in the house at this point?
At that particular time, after he'd done all this, he came back to the house, and Louise and Billy Colleen, they were still in the house. He went back and told Louise that he killed 5 birds.
And that's where the article had been coined out of the News Gazette by, and that came out years later, but it was called 5 Little Birds. And, I've struggled with this to maybe pose questions to you and not pose, I want you guys to tell your story. The part that bothered me about that The Five Little Birds, it's a article grabbing title, but then again, it kind of speaks to if he's saying he's killed 5 little birds, it's almost twofold, isn't it? Where they were innocent as little birds, but then again, if he was just so nonchalant to say, I just went out and killed 5 birds,
Yes, and after all this happened, during this time, my sister Patty had backed up against the stove, which Mom was doing some cooking, and caught the back of her blouse on fire. So Mom had called my older sister, Marie, to come out and to take her to the hospital in town. And that's when all this stuff went down.
It was your mom that had her blouse caught on fire?
No, my sister Patty had backed against the stove, the kitchen stove.
Yeah, that's what...
Mom was cooking, and anyhow, Patty backed against the stove and somehow caught the back of her blouse on fire and burned her back.
So
they had to take her to Memorial, take her to the old hospital, yeah.
Yes, took her to the hospital, and while they were gone, that's when all this happened. Well, I was at my uncle's with my dad, and while my mom was gone taking care of Patty. And then after he did all this, he went in the house and told Louise they shot 5 birds. Billy was upstairs cleaning the girl's room, and he headed up the stairs. He was going to go after her. And about that time, my mom and my older sister and my sister's neighbor that drove her out there pulled in the driveway. And
he's still there. He's still there at this point.
Yes. And he runs out and asked if he could get a ride back to town.
That's why I was asking earlier about how he would get out there, but for whatever reason, he wasn't driving that day.
But his car was there, but it wasn't running.
Ah.
Okay.
I think if I remember right, he drove it out there the week before, and anyhow, it wouldn't run or whatever. I don't remember 100% sure about the car. I do know he had it out there.
Yeah, and that was the old the convertible.
Yeah.
And so he, apparently, beyond the sodium pentothal and the true serum and everything, apparently there was a journal that came out later that he'd been thinking about this for months.
Well, he had kept a journal that the police found whenever they searched his house after this happened. That night, after he did this, he got a ride back to town with Marie and her neighbor. And, of course, they had no idea that this had happened.
And she took him to 33rd and DeWitt, right?
Yes, and he went to the Top Boy restaurant, which is no longer there. I think there's a Secretary of State licensing offices there now. A friend of his that he had talked to about this, tried to get him to do this with him, was working there, and he went in there and told him that he did it.
And he was wanting to sell him the 22.
Yes, he was trying to sell him the gun, and he said no.
Yeah, he didn't want to touch it.
And he left there and was walking the railroad between Mattoon and Charleston, walked out past the drive-in theater that was there at the time, and the police were tracking him, and they were relatively close, but they never did catch him on the railroad. The next morning, a security guard at the U of I or Eastern Illinois University, I mean, had looked up and saw him walking down the street.
And they picked him up, if memory serves, picked him up at 4th and Lincoln, where the 4th Street Records is at now, there, from what I read on the reports. But they had, oh my gosh, they estimates of 100 lawmen, looking in all different directions just in case he went any other way.
Yeah, they were looking for him all over the place.
Yeah, and that would have been back when, Odell was in charge of the police. He was the chief, I believe, back then. And so they pick him up there. And now going back to Louise, and Lisa said, your family's been, well, you guys have been re-victimized over the years over this, whether it's a BS article that comes out or a this or that is just not the truth. And she said that there was Louise had the stigma, or she said that there were people saying that she was in on it or something like that. And
there was all kinds of accusations and innuendos, saying that she was in on it, and then also saying that she knew about it. She never had a clue.
Well, whenever I go back to the journal, and he never says, we are going to do this, or me and Louis. It's only him talking to himself, yes, basically, from what I get out of the journal. And it doesn't seem, and so...
But in that journal, not to interrupt you, but in that journal, it stated that he wanted to know what it was like to kill somebody ever since he was 5 years old.
Well, okay. Now that's kind of leading me into my next question. And so he planned this for quite a while.
He planned it for 6 months.
But you said that he and Louise had only been together for almost that amount of time. Right?
Well, it was a little longer than that. I think they met at the first part of the school year that year.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd been closer to time much as they were together.
Yeah. But he didn't. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, that would have been like September, end of August.
Yes.
And he didn't have any journal entries about riding off into the sunset with Louise and, us this or we that or anything. It's just him talking to himself from what I gather. And so I can only imagine.
Thank you for listening to Tim Cox's story in this episode. Stay tuned next week when we will have the second part of his story. Bye till then.
Jordan and I would like to thank Mr. Tim Cox for having this very difficult discussion with us. It's been 58 years since that fateful day of April 27th when this murder took place. We're going to handle this with kid gloves. We know this is a tragic subject for many people and that the community of Mattoon is still not over it. It's still very raw because there's many people that are still living that lived through this tragedy with the family. If there's anyone that is wanting to add to this discussion, feel free to reach out to Jordan or I through our messenger or through email. We're happy to discuss this further. We plan on doing 2 other podcasts dedicated to this subject. A little foreshadowing, we are going to discuss with an informant of someone who was at the Top Boy when the convicted murderer was trying to sell the murder weapon to him. We're also going to talk to a family member, a niece, who lived with the remaining family after this event. We're going to be talking with her about the before this event and the after of this event in Mattoon and within the family dynamic. We know this is sensitive, and we really want to hear everyone's side of the story. We are praying for healing. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. We should have another episode out on the Cox family members within a week. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Tom from Toonie Loons, and we want you to know that you can be part of this by being a sponsor. You can either sponsor a whole episode or you can sponsor half an episode. We're wanting to get the stories of Mattoon that you know and that we know out to the audience. So feel free to reach out to Tom or Jordan, and we will get your story told.